Well, the Employment Tax Incentive Act was signed into law by President Jacob Zuma on Wednesday. The law will take effect on the 1st of January 2014 and will apply to all young workers hired on or after October this year. Ismail Momoniat, Deputy Director General of Tax and Financial Sector Policy from the National Treasury, joins us for more. Ismail, when I read the news, this first announcement was made in February 2010. Why has it taken so long to come into law?
It's taken so long because we were, as you know, COSATU and others, for example, had some reservations about the incentive, and so there was a lot of negotiations that went through. You know, we had a paper, we put it out at NADLAC, we were consulting very broadly, and though we didn't reach a final agreement on all of these issues, we certainly took a lot of the reservations into account. So the process took longer than we anticipated, much longer, too long perhaps.
Well, I suppose when you talk about the process, how will it work? What are the nuts and bolts segments that we should expect?
Look, this is a very simple mechanism. I mean, it basically will, the way it works is that if anybody employs someone from, say, between ages of 18 and 29, and inclusive, in fact, of those years, that the employer will then be, in a sense, assisted with part of the salary or wage that they would be paying, as long as the amount is between 2,000 and 6,000 rands per month. So what happens, the employer, and it's got to be a private employer, so it doesn't apply to any public entities, the private employer has to be registered for PAYE, and they would then just deduct, for example, up to a maximum of 1,000 rands per month per employee if they're earning, say, between 2,000 and 4,000 rand. It's slightly less if it's a bit more than that, every month. So it's simple, it's just done through their tax assessment, and in effect, they will be having extra money to therefore pay for that employee.
Well, Ismail, I see that this will only be done for a period of maximum 2 years. Is there a reason behind that?
Look, the tool has been aimed largely at people who are taking on their first jobs, okay, or their first set of jobs. And I think all the sort of experience all over the world shows that to the extent that you can get that first job when you leave school or you leave university and so on, that actually makes you much more employable. It teaches you basic skills on how to work, and that increases your chances of getting employment later on quite significantly, and in fact you get a better job. So this is just meant to get employers to generate many more new jobs. So for example, we've got many matriculants now who go through the annual ritual in about 2 weeks' time of their results coming out. They'd be out in the job market. This incentive is something we hope employers all over, and particularly small businesses, will actually use to create new employment. They'll be assisted. I think it's a great mechanism, and we hope that we hope the take-up will be very high, and so that we can actually make not just a dent on unemployment, but more importantly, actually empower all these young people who come into the job market, may not have gone to university, and therefore their prospects for getting a job even after the 2 years will increase significantly.
Now, we know that in South Africa we have a very high youth unemployment rate, but let's look at other workers, older skilled workers. COSATU has said that this might actually force them out of the market. Is that true, and how have you put in measures in place to make sure that this doesn't happen?
Yes, we don't agree with COSATU's viewpoint. I mean, as I've said, from 2010, we've actually think that we've accommodated a lot of their concerns. So there are some punitive measures in the bills, which I think will bring down the prospect for such abuse significantly. We also rely on the labor system, and we have pretty high protections in our labor relations system. So that's not to say that you can always root out all abuse 100%. You can't do that in life. But we think it's been reduced significantly, and we think by and large there's many positives. In fact, even for COSATU, because if there's many more employees who come in, there would be potential recruits for union federation, trade unions to recruit.
How do small businesses come into play and how do they get involved? Do they get involved at all?
As I said, whilst this incentive applies to all private businesses, so it applies to big businesses, we think that the take-up and the potential is there for small businesses. So, and all they have to do is just to be registered for PAYE.
Now, this tax incentive will also be extended to other special economic zones. Can you give us a little bit of more background in terms of that?
Yes. So whilst the focus is on the youth, it also applies to everybody else, as long as they're in a sort of lower income categories, right, up to 6,000 rands per month. But that would apply to the special economic zones. That bill is still going through Parliament, so as soon as it's enacted and implemented, the minister can then designate, it's not necessarily all special economic zones, but the minister can designate those special economic zones to which this incentive will apply. The minister also has a power to go in to specific industries or sectors and also let this apply to older workers. But at this stage, I think there's no immediate plans to extend that. For the moment, from 1st January, this will apply certainly to the 18 to 29-year-olds in any industry as long as it's not in the public sector.
Now, the government has already put in place a learnership incentive. How does this employment incentive work hand in hand with that?
Yes, and in fact, this was one of the very good points that the unions brought out, that they were saying that we should link this incentive to training. And we said that, look, at this stage, we could not do it in terms of it being a mandatory requirement. But of course, the hope is, and what we want to encourage employers to do, is to make sure that when they employ, they utilize all the training mechanisms that you have, the skills training, so that people actually are able to get better jobs when they finish this basic, the initial period of work. We are hoping that later down the line, and in fact the Act does allow it, that once we're able to harmonize how the CETA system works, that we could actually make this mandatory, but not at this stage, because of just some of the harmonizations are not there at this stage.